Hello, everyone. I'm Eric D'Souza, and you're joining me today for another edition of Crime Writers of Canada's podcast, where we discuss all things crime fiction from writers from coast to coast. Joining me today is my friend Marcelle Dubé. Hi, Marcelle. How are you?
Hi, Eric. I'm fine. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too, even though it's virtually. We did chat a couple of years ago, and I'll get to that in our bio. So, Marcel Dubé has been nominated for the Best Short Story from Crime Writers of Canada. Um, I guess a little bit more about her. Marcelle Dubé writes mysteries and speculative fiction novels and short stories. She grew up near Montreal, lived in the Yukon for 35 years, but now calls Alberta home. Her short fiction has appeared in several magazines and anthologies. In 2021, she won the CWC Award for Best Short Story. Her story this year, Reversion, published in April of 2023 edition of Mystery Magazine, has been nominated once again for an award of excellence in the short story category, and she was also shortlisted, or this story was shortlisted for the Deringer Award. Well, let's start with the story. Marcel, could you tell us a little bit about Reversion?
Sure. It features Luke, a man probably in his 30s. He is in love with his wife, and he lives somewhere in Alberta, um, in Way River, which is actually a stand-in for High River. And he used to work for a mob family, a mob boss, and he was an enforcer. And he chose a different life when he met his about to be wife, and that's why he moved away. And then something terrible happens, and he has to revert back to the hard man he used to be.
I always admire short story writers because I think you have to tell such a layered story quickly. Um, and there's a lot going on in this story, um, but at the same time, you have to keep the pace up. So, is there a secret? And you've written a lot of short stories. I was on Amazon and it's like, wow, you've written a lot of short stories. Is there a sort of a secret to writing a good short story?
Well, if there is one, I don't know what it is. Like I just write them and I look at them and I go, that didn't work at all. So I put it away and I write something else. For years I avoided writing short stories because of how hard they are. They're very hard. Writing a novel is a lot easier. So no, I don't know if there's a secret.
I agree with you in that it's hard to write short stories. You would think a shorter work would just happen easier to the
Mhm.
creative mind. And I'm lucky enough to know publishers of magazines, and they're always saying like, "Why don't you write a short story?" And I'm just like, I can't even get inspired to write one. I try to think of one, and then I read all the great short stories like yourselves and Donna Lee and all these great stories that come out in Mystery Magazine, and I'm just like, wow, they're great. You sometimes revisit some of your novels in short stories. So
Yeah.
what is the process? When do you decide like that's a short story or no, I'm gonna flesh this out. This is more of a novel.
Well, I don't know if I decide so much as the story dictates, right? You start writing it, and all of a sudden you realize, no, this is just going to be a slice. It's not going to be the full-blown meal, right? This is just going to be a slice of the story, and it wouldn't carry a novel. So that's when it becomes a short story or even a novella.
So you honestly don't care how long the story is. You just sort of find a home for it afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I I hardly ever try to adjust the story to a market unless I committed to writing for an anthology call or, like for the Crime Writers of Canada's Canada West, the Sisters in Crime Canada West anthologies. Well, that's my baby, right? That's my chapter. So I always submit a story for that. So then I really have to, heed the theme of the anthology and the word count.
The word
But
count,
there's
definitely.
almost always a way of cutting words. Almost always.
Well, let's speak to that. If something is, I don't know, let's say 1,000 words too long, where do you start cutting? Do you look at descriptions of people? backstory? What's the first to go?
I look if there's a subplot, like in the short story, there's not often a subplot, but if there is, does it need to be there? Or do I need this character, or can these two characters merge for the same purpose? And sometimes sometimes I don't want to cut. Sometimes I like the story the way it is. So then I have to put it aside and write another one that hopefully will stay within the boundaries.
Then I guess you'd have to find a home for the first story.
Yes. Yes.
I was on your Amazon account and I did see a lot of different stories, like you mentioned. We mentioned speculative fiction, but I also saw some romance. What inspires you to write your stories? Do you worry about genre, or you just write a story and then worry about it later?
Yeah, I never worry about the genre. I just write the story and then I look at it and figure what it is. The romance, for instance, the only times I'm ever inspired to write romance are at Christmas time. At Christmas time, I've got all this, bonhomie and all this happiness happening around me, and I'll write a romantic short story. So otherwise, no, I'm not a very romantic person. Yeah.
It does seem like it's been a few years since you've written a novel, so you seem to have two series going concurrently, the Mendenhall Mysteries, and also a speculative fiction, the Alley Chronicles. Are you going to revisit those? Because it's been a while.
I think the Mendenhall Mysteries is done. I think it's ended. Like there may be short stories coming out of it, but otherwise no more novels unless something changes. The Alley Chronicles are alternate history slash science fiction slash murder mystery slash whatever else. And I've got two already in the series, and I'm very pleased with them. And I have started the third one, but by golly, a short story always comes to interrupt my work. So I've been writing a lot of short stories in the last couple of years, which has, impacted my novel writing.
I guess you have that freedom
Yeah.
to write what you want to write, but I guess speculative fiction typically comes in threes. Do you see it that way, that maybe you just have to write this novel and then it can be done?
Oh, I had in mind, I had in mind that there would be a series because there are six sisters in this Alley family, and I thought there'd be a novel to feature each sister. And then I thought, well, maybe I should also go back and visit when they first crash landed on Earth. And there would be a whole lot of stories in there. And then and I got paralyzed. I got paralyzed with indecision. Like, what am I going to do with these stories? So right now I'm just going to write this one and hope I get to finish it. I'm not going to worry about what comes after.
That's fantastic. So what's your writing process like then? Do you wake up in the morning, say, I got to write 1,000 words? I think I'll write speculative fiction this morning.
I usually write one thing at a time. I finish it and then I move on to the next. Now, putting aside the third novel as the exception. And I was a whole lot more efficient when I was working. When I was working full time, like I had a quota of at least 1,000 words a day. 1,000 words a day, you can write three novels in a year, if you don't plan on editing or marketing or anything like that. But 1,000 words a day was a very manageable amount for me. Now that I'm not working anymore for wages, my days seem to fill up with stuff to do all the time. I don't understand how I got so busy. So yeah, unless I've got something burning in me to write, I'll write when I feel like it. And usually for me, it's first thing in the morning. I get up, have my breakfast, and bring my coffee upstairs and start working.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love working in the mornings when
Yeah.
the rest of the day doesn't weigh on your head yet.
Yeah, exactly. And evenings, although I did it for years in the evenings, not my best time. I do not shine in the evenings, but I still did it. You know, you can use the mornings of the weekends to edit when your brain is fresher.
Well, as a crime writer who enjoys your crime writing, I hope your creative mind stays in that genre. You were nice enough to send me Reversion, and I have a typical process before interviewing somebody to read the first half, because I want to know the story without knowing too much. I have to admit to you that I could not stop. I was like, I have to
Good.
know the ending. I could guess maybe what the ending is going to be, but I have to keep going. And I guess that's the mark of a good short story. So, congratulations and good luck.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.